Jake Morrison sat in his old pickup truck, staring at the auction flyer one more time. The paper was crumpled from being folded and unfolded so many times. The words "Exotic Salvage Materials" were printed in bold letters at the top. Below that, an address in the middle of nowhere. Montana. Jake was 45 years old and tired. Very tired. His left leg was gone, replaced by a metal one that clicked when he walked. The doctors said it was the best they could do after the explosion on Mars 3 years ago. The war there had ended, but Jake's fighting days were over. Now he lived alone in a small house, surviving on his military pension and trying to forget the nightmares. He almost threw the flyer away when it came in the mail, but something about it caught his attention. Maybe it was the strange logo at the bottom, or the way the paper felt different in his hands. Warmer somehow. The drive to the auction site took 2 hours on rough dirt roads. Jake's leg ached from pressing the gas pedal, but he kept going. When he finally arrived, his mouth fell open. The place was huge. Acres and acres of land filled with the strangest things he had ever seen. There were twisted metal shapes that looked like modern art, crystals the size of cars that glowed softly in the afternoon sun, and scattered everywhere were pieces of metal that Jake recognized from his military days. These were parts of alien ships. Real alien technology. Jake parked next to several expensive black cars. Men in suits were walking around with tablets and cameras, taking pictures of everything. It looked like government people or corporate buyers. Jake felt out of place in his worn jeans and old jacket. An elderly woman with gray hair was running the auction. She introduced herself as Martha Kowalski, Pete's niece. Pete had been the owner of all this strange collection, and he had died last month with no will. Everything had to be sold. My uncle was a strange man, Martha told the crowd, of about 30 people. He lived out here alone for 20 years. Never said much about where all this stuff came from, but it's all got to go. The bidding started with the smaller items. Jake watched as government agents bid against each other for pieces of crystal and metal fragments. The prices were crazy high. One small chunk of blue metal sold for $15,000. Jake began to think he was wasting his time. He only had $60,000 to his name, his entire life savings, plus a veteran's loan he had taken out that morning. These people were spending that much on single items. Then they got to lot 47-C. Martha pointed to a section of the yard that looked different from the rest. In the center was what appeared to be a large metal structure, mostly buried in the ground. Only the top part was visible, covered in strange patterns that seemed to move when Jake wasn't looking directly at them. "This lot includes everything you see here," Martha said. "The buried structure, the surrounding land, and all the smaller items scattered around. It's about 40 acres total." The government people looked at their tablets and shook their heads. One man in an expensive suit whispered to his partner, "Readings are all over the place, too unstable for our purposes." Another person said, "The geological survey shows the whole area is compromised. Nothing valuable there." Jake walked closer to the buried structure. It was silver, almost mirror-like, but the surface seemed to ripple like water. The patterns covering it were geometric, made up of lines and shapes that hurt his eyes if he looked too long. But there was something about it that called to him. His metal leg started to tingle as he got closer. The electronic systems in it were acting strange, making small beeping sounds. Jake had never experienced anything like it. "Do I hear any bids for lot 47C?" Martha called out. Silence. The government people were already moving toward other items. The corporate buyers were shaking their heads and walking away. Jake raised his hand. $50,000. Everyone turned to look at him. A few people laughed. One government agent said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Let the veteran waste his money on that junk." Martha looked surprised, but pleased. 50,000 going once. Going twice ... sold to the gentleman in the back. Jake's heart was pounding. He had just spent almost everything he owned on something he didn't understand. His friend Carlos, who had driven out with him, grabbed his arm. "Jake, what are you doing? That's all your money." "I don't know," Jake replied honestly. "But I have to have it." The paperwork took an hour. Martha handed him the deed and a set of keys to an old gate at the front of the property. She also gave him a metal box that had belonged to her Uncle Pete. He said if anyone ever bought Lot 47C, they should get this too. She explained. Inside the box were handwritten journals. Dozens of them. The first page of the top journal was dated 20 years ago. It read, "Day 1. The ship spoke to me today. It says it's been waiting." Jake drove back to the property that evening with Carlos. They set up a small camping tent near the buried structure. As the sun went down, something amazing happened. The patterns on the silver surface began to glow. Soft blue light pulsed along the geometric lines, creating a beautiful display in the darkness. "Jake," Carlos whispered, "what did you buy?" Jake touched the surface with his hand. The metal was warm, and the tingling in his artificial leg got stronger. For a moment, he could swear he heard something. A voice, very faint, speaking words he couldn't quite understand. "I think," Jake said slowly, "I bought something that's been waiting for me." That night, Jake lay in his sleeping bag, staring at the glowing patterns. Pete's journals were beside him, filled with 20 years of entries about conversations with something he called the ship. According to Pete, the structure was much larger than it appeared. Most of it was buried deep underground, and it was definitely not from Earth. Jake fell asleep to the soft pulsing of the lights, wondering what he had gotten himself into. In his dreams, he saw stars and heard that faint voice again, clearer. This time, it was saying one word over and over, constructor. 3 weeks had passed since Jake bought the strange property. He had moved a small trailer onto the land and started what he called careful digging. His military engineering training told him to document everything, so he took pictures and measurements of every piece of metal and crystal he found. The buried structure was much bigger than anyone had guessed. Jake's digging revealed that it went down at least 30 feet into the ground. The silver metal seemed to be fused with the rock itself, like it had crashed while existing in 2 places at the same time. It made no sense, but Jake had learned to accept strange things since the first alien contact with Earth 10 years ago. Carlos visited every few days, bringing supplies and shaking his head at Jake's obsession. "You're living like a hermit out." "Here," Carlos would say, "this isn't healthy, man." But Jake couldn't leave. Every day brought new discoveries. He found pieces of technology that looked almost human, but were clearly more advanced. Tools that felt warm to the touch. Crystals that hummed when he walked by. And always, the patterns on the main structure pulsed with that soft blue light. Especially at night. Jake had read through most of Pete's journals. The old man had documented 20 years of strange experiences on this land. According to Pete, the structure had talked to him, sharing information about the future and warning about dangers to come. Jake thought Pete might have been crazy, until the day everything changed. It was a Tuesday morning. Jake was using a metal detector near what looked like an entrance to the buried ship. The device had been acting strangely all week, giving readings that made no sense. But today was different. As Jake swept the detector over the silver surface, his artificial legs started making loud beeping sounds. The electronic components in his prosthetic were overloading. Sparks shot out from the knee joint, and Jake lost his balance. He fell forward, his hand reaching out to catch himself. His palm pressed against one of the glowing geometric patterns. Everything changed in Instant, the solid metal surface became like water. Jake's hand passed right through it, then his arm, then his whole body. He was falling through what should have been solid metal, tumbling into a space that couldn't possibly exist. Jake landed on a soft, warm surface that glowed with gentle light. He was inside the ship, in a chamber that was much larger than the old structure he had seen from outside. The walls were made of some kind of living crystal that flowed like liquid but felt solid to the touch. Lights moved through the walls in patterns that reminded Jake of nerve signals in a human body. "Please remain calm, Constructor Morrison." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. It spoke perfect English directly into Jake's mind, not through his ears. Jake scrambled to his feet, looking around for the source of the voice. "Who's there? Show yourself. I am here all around you. I am the vessel you call the buried structure. My designation is Prometheus Dawn. I have been waiting for you to arrive." Jake's military training kicked in. He looked for exits, weapons, anything that might help him if this was a trap. But the chamber felt peaceful, even welcoming. The flowing lights in the walls pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. "Waiting for me? How do you know my name?" "Because you are Constructor Morrison, the one who will build humanity's future. I have traveled far through time to find you. I come from your world, Jake Morrison, but from a time 800 years in your future." Jake sat down hard on the glowing floor. This was impossible. Time travel was science fiction. But he was sitting inside an alien ship that had somehow existed buried in Montana rock for who knows how long. "You're from the future? From Earth?" "Yes, I am a temporal reconnaissance vessel sent back to prevent a catastrophic war. In my timeline, humanity and the alien species of this galaxy attempted to coexist peacefully. For a time, it worked. Humans were valued as creative problem solvers and adaptable allies." Images began flowing through Jake's mind. He saw cities in space, humans and aliens working together, incredible technology that seemed like magic. But then the images darkened. "However, your species' rapid growth and unpredictable nature eventually frightened the other races. They formed a coalition to contain what they called the human threat. The war that followed lasted 300 years and ended with Earth's destruction." Jake saw the darker images now. Battle fleets covering the sky, cities burning. The planet Earth surrounded by some kind of energy barrier, looking dead and lifeless from space. I was part of a desperate mission to change the timeline. Several ships like myself were sent back to different periods in human history. We crash-landed intentionally. Our advanced technologies scattered across your world to be found when the time was right. And I'm supposed to find this stuff? Why me? Because in every timeline we observed, you become the key to humanity's survival. Your military tactical mind, combined with an unusual ability to interface with alien technology, makes you uniquely qualified. But Jake, there is something you must understand. By awakening me, you have accelerated the timeline. The war is longer centuries away. The chamber around Jake began to change. The walls became transparent, showing him views of space. Dozens of alien probe ships were visible, small craft observing Earth from a distance. They are already watching. Your planet's rapid technological advancement has caught their attention earlier than in the original timeline. The galactic community is debating what to do about humanity right now. Jake felt sick. How long do we have? Perhaps 2 years before they make their decision. And based on our observations of their species, that decision will not favor humanity. Jake stood up, his mind racing. So what do I do? How do I stop a war against aliens with technology centuries ahead of ours? First, you must be changed. The ship's systems can repair your body and unlock abilities that humans will not naturally develop for hundreds of years. But the process is irreversible. You will no longer be entirely human. Jake looked down at his artificial leg, then at his scarred hands from the Mars War. What exactly are you offering? The ability to interface directly with any technology, human or alien. Enhanced physical capabilities. Most importantly, limited access to temporal echoes that will show you possible futures based on your actions. And if I say no, then I will remain buried here, and humanity will face the coming war with only the technology you currently possess. The probability of survival is less than 3%. Jake closed his eyes and thought about everyone he had ever served. With all the people on Earth who had no idea what was coming. His friend Carlos, his neighbors. Millions of people living normal lives while alien observers decided their fate. If I do this, can we actually win? I do not know. But we can give humanity a fighting chance. In some of the timeline variations I have observed, your species not only survives, but becomes one of the most influential civilizations in the galaxy. Humans have something the other races lack. What's that? The refusal to accept defeat, even when facing impossible odds. Jake opened his eyes and looked around the crystal chamber. The flowing lights seemed brighter now, more welcoming. Somewhere above him was a world full of people who didn't know they were in danger. People who deserved a chance to defend themselves. All right, Jake said. Let's do this. But I want to understand everything. No surprises. Agreed, Constructor Morrison. We will begin immediately. As Jake felt the ship's systems beginning to work on his body, he wondered what Carlos would think when he didn't return to the trailer that night. But that worry seemed small compared to what was coming. Earth needed a defender, and somehow Jake Morrison had volunteered for the job. Jake woke up feeling different, very different. He was lying on the soft, glowing floor of the ship's chamber, but something had changed during the night. The constant ache in his back from old injuries was gone. The phantom pain from his missing leg had disappeared. Most surprising of all, he could feel both of his legs. Jake sat up quickly and looked down. Where his artificial leg had been, there was now a real leg made of flesh and bone. It looked exactly like his original leg, complete with old scars from his childhood. He flexed the new muscles and wiggled the toes. Everything worked perfectly. The medical systems have repaired your body while you slept, Prometheus Dawn said in his mind. Your spine has been healed, damaged organs restored, and the missing limb regrown using your own genetic template. Jake stood up and took a few steps. No pain, no clicking of metal joints. For the first time in 3 years, he felt whole again. How is this possible? Human medical technology will advance significantly over the next few centuries. What seems miraculous to you is routine maintenance for us. But the physical repairs are only the beginning. The real changes are in your brain. Jake touched his forehead. He didn't feel any different mentally, but as he looked around the crystal chamber, he began to notice things he hadn't seen before. The flowing lights in the walls weren't random. They were information streams, data flowing through the ship's systems, and somehow he could understand what they meant. I can read the ship's data streams, Jake said, amazed. Yes, you now have the ability to interface directly with any technology, human or alien. Simply touch a device, and you will understand its function and purpose. You will also begin experiencing temporal echoes. What are those? As if in answer, Jake suddenly saw flashes of possible futures. Brief glimpses of different outcomes based on choices he might make. In one vision, he saw himself working with government scientists to build new weapons. That timeline ended with Earth becoming a military fortress that eventually fell to alien invasion. In another, he saw himself trying to hide the ship's technology. That timeline ended even worse, with humanity wiped out in a surprise attack. The echoes show you potential futures, the ship explained. They are not fixed predictions, but possibilities based on current trends. As you make choices, new echoes will appear while others fade away. Jake shook his head to clear the visions. This is a lot to handle. I understand. But time is not on our side. During your recovery, the situation outside has become more complicated. The chamber walls became transparent again, showing views of the property above. Jake could see several black vehicles parked near his trailer. People in suits were walking around with equipment, taking readings and measurements. Government agents? Jake asked. Department of Xenological Affairs, led by Agent Lisa Parker. They detected the energy surge when I began your modifications. There is also a second group from the Galactic Cultural Exchange Program, headed by Kevin Walsh. Both groups are trying to claim jurisdiction over this site. Jake watched as the two groups of officials argued with each other near his trailer. Carlos was there too, looking worried and angry. One of the government agents was showing him some kind of official document. I need to get up there, Jake said. Wait. There is something else you must see first. The view changed to show space around Earth. More alien probe ships had arrived. Instead of dozens, there were now hundreds of small craft observing the planet from various distances. Your awakening has accelerated their timeline as well. The galactic community is no longer just watching. They are preparing to make a decision about humanity. Jake saw larger ships approaching the edge of the solar system. These weren't probes. They were warships, sleek and dangerous-looking craft that dwarfed anything humans had ever built. How long until they get here? The lead vessels will reach Earth orbit in approximately 6 months. But they are not coming to attack immediately. They will demand that humanity surrender all advanced technology and submit to galactic oversight. When Earth refuses, as they know it will, they will begin what they call containment protocols, which means the complete destruction of human civilization, followed by the establishment of a quarantine zone around Earth to prevent any survivors from reaching other worlds. Jake felt sick. So we have 6 months to prepare for a war we can't win. Not exactly. We have 6 months to change the nature of the conflict. The other alien species believe humans are a primitive race that stumbled onto advanced technology. They do not expect organized resistance using weapons they cannot understand. The ship showed Jake images of the other buried structures on his property. There were 7 in total, all similar to Prometheus Dawn, but with different capabilities. Some were weapon systems. Others were manufacturing facilities that could build advanced technology using common Earth materials. All of these ships respond to your touch now. Together, they form the foundation of humanity's defense. But Jake, you must understand something important. If you choose this path, you cannot involve your government. Every timeline where official authorities control this technology ends in defeat. Why? Because governments think in terms of armies and territories. The coming war will not be won by traditional military forces. It will be won by individuals who can adapt quickly and think in ways the aliens cannot predict. Jake processed this information, so I need to work outside the system. You need to build a new system. A network of enhanced humans who can use advanced technology to defend Earth in unexpected ways. But first, you must deal with the immediate problem above us. Jake looked at the government agents again. Agent Parker was now directing her team to set up some kind of drilling equipment near the buried ship. She clearly intended to excavate the site with or without his permission. If they start drilling into the ship, will it damage anything important? No, but it will reveal technology they are not ready to handle. Worse, their presence here will attract more attention from the alien observers. We need them to leave. Jake thought about his options. He could try to convince them to go away, but government agents weren't known for backing down easily. He could use legal means, but that would take time they didn't have. Or he could demonstrate why they should be afraid to mess with things they didn't understand. Can the ship defend itself? I have defensive systems, but using them against humans would send the wrong message to the galactic observers. They need to see that humanity is worth preserving, not that we are a threat to other intelligent life. Jake smiled. I have a better idea. Can you make me invisible to their sensors? Yes, I can bend light around you and mask your heat signature. But what do you intend to do? Something that will convince them to leave voluntarily and make them think twice about coming back. Jake moved toward what looked like an exit from the chamber. As he approached, the crystal wall became permeable, allowing him to step through. He found himself in a short tunnel that led to the surface. Remember, Prometheus Dawn said, you now have enhanced physical abilities. You are stronger and faster than before, and your reflexes are significantly improved. But do not reveal the full extent of your capabilities yet. Jake emerged from the ground near his trailer, staying hidden behind some of the crystal formations. The government agents were busy with their equipment and didn't notice him. Carlos was sitting on the trailer steps, looking defeated. Jake circled around behind the drilling equipment while invisible. The machine was expensive and complex, designed for precision excavation of sensitive archaeological sites. With his new abilities, Jake could understand exactly how it worked just by looking at it. He also understood how to break it. Jake touched several key components, using his new technological interface abilities to overload their control systems. The drill started making loud grinding noises and producing sparks. The operators jumped back as smoke began pouring from the engine. While everyone was distracted by the malfunctioning equipment, Jake appeared next to Carlos, dropping his invisibility. At the last second, Jake, Carlos jumped up. Where have you been? These people have been here for hours looking for you. Agent Parker turned at the sound of Carlos's voice. She was a tall woman with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Mr. Morrison, I presume? I'm Agent Lisa Parker, Department of Xenological Affairs. We need to talk. 6 months had passed since Jake's first conversation with Agent Parker. That meeting had not gone well. Parker had demanded access to the buried structures, claiming national security interests. Kevin Walsh from the Galactic Cultural Exchange program had insisted that all alien technology belonged under international oversight. Jake had politely told them both to leave his property. When they refused, Jake had demonstrated some of his new abilities. Nothing too dramatic, just enough to make it clear that he was no longer an Ori human. He had bent a steel crowbar into a pretzel with his bare hands and had somehow known exactly what their electronic surveillance equipment was recording. The government teams had left that same day, but Jake knew they would be back with more serious force. That was why Jake had gone underground, literally and figuratively. Using the manufacturing capabilities of the buried ships, Jake had established 3 hidden bases across the American West. Each base was built inside cave systems that the ships had hollowed out and reinforced with their advanced materials. The main base was in Colorado, hidden beneath what looked like an abandoned mine. The others were in Nevada and Arizona, disguised as geological research stations. Jake wasn't working alone anymore. Carlos had been the first to volunteer when Jake explained the situation. The ship's medical systems had enhanced Carlos too, giving him the ability to interface with alien technology and improving his already impressive mechanical skills. Carlos now ran the main manufacturing operation, turning common Earth materials into advanced defensive systems. Dr. Rachel Kim had joined them after her government lab had been shut down for asking too many questions about the alien probe ships. Rachel was a brilliant scientist who specialized in alien biology and she had discovered something terrifying. The alien observers weren't just watching Earth. They were conducting tests. "They're sampling our atmosphere," Rachel explained during a meeting at the Colorado base. "Every probe ship is collecting data about human biology, our technology levels, and our military capabilities. This isn't just observation. This is preparation for something specific." Jake's team had grown to include 23 people, all veterans or scientists who had been recruited carefully. Each person had been enhanced by the ship's medical systems and trained to use the advanced technology they were building. They called themselves the Temporal Defense Network, though most of them just said they worked for Jake. The biggest breakthrough had come when they successfully activated all 7 buried ships. Each vessel had different capabilities that complemented the others. Prometheus Dawn was the command and control center. 2 ships were dedicated to manufacturing advanced materials and weapons. One was a medical facility that could enhance human biology. Another was a stealth reconnaissance vessel. The 6th ship was a defensive platform that could project energy shields over large areas. The 7th ship was the most mysterious. It seemed to be some kind of temporal laboratory, but Jake hadn't figured out how to use it yet. With all the ships working together, Jake's team had accomplished incredible things. They had built portable shield generators that could protect entire cities. They had created weapons that could disable alien technology without harming the operators. Most importantly, they had developed a communication network that could coordinate resistance efforts across the entire planet without being detected by either human governments or alien observers. But their first real test came sooner than expected. "Jake, you need to see this," Rachel called from the main control room. She was pointing at a large display that showed the space around Earth. A new contact had appeared at the edge of the solar system, much larger than the probe ships. "Is that what I think it is?" Carlos asked, joining them at the display. Jake touched the control panel with his enhanced abilities, accessing more detailed information about the new arrival. The ship was massive, at least 5 miles long, and it was broadcasting signals to all the probe ships around Earth. "It's a consortium enforcement vessel," Jake said, reading the data streams. "Representatives from 5 different alien species. They're here to deliver an ultimatum." Prometheus Dawn's voice spoke in Jake's mind, sharing the information with the others through their communication link. The enforcement ship contains diplomatic representatives, but also a full military crew. If humanity rejects their demands, they are authorized to begin immediate containment protocols. "What kind of demands?" Rachel asked. Jake accessed more of the ship's intelligence files. "They want Earth to surrender all advanced technology, submit to galactic oversight, and relocate most of the human population to designated worlds where we can be monitored and controlled. And if we refuse, they destroy all major cities and establish a quarantine field around the planet. Any humans who survive will be trapped on Earth forever, while the galaxy decides what to do with us." The room fell silent. This was the moment they had been preparing for, but it had come faster than anyone expected. "How long until they reach Earth?" Carlos asked. 3 days, Jake replied. "But I don't think we should wait for them to make the first move." Rachel looked at him with concern. "What are you thinking?" Jake was already working out the details in his mind, using the tactical planning abilities that had been enhanced by his integration with the ship's systems. "We're going to capture their enforcement ship." "Jake, that's crazy," Carlos said. "That ship is huge, and we don't even know how many aliens are on board." "The ship's database has detailed information about consortium vessels," Jake explained. "This class of enforcement ship typically carries a crew of about 200 individuals from different species. They rely on their advanced technology and the assumption that primitive species won't be able to mount effective resistance. So how do we take it?" Jake smiled. "By doing something they'll never expect. We're going to board their ship using Technology they don't know we have. Capture their crew without killing anyone, and then broadcast a message to the entire galaxy. What kind of message? Rachel asked. That humanity isn't going to roll over and accept conquest. That we're willing to defend ourselves, but we're also willing to negotiate as equals rather than victims. Jake turned to address the whole team, which had gathered around the control room. This is what we've been preparing for. If we can capture this ship intact, we'll have access to their databases, their technology, and most importantly, their communication systems. We can learn everything about the galactic political situation and make contact with species that might support us. And if we fail, someone asked, then we fall back to the original plan and prepare for a long war. But I don't think we're going to fail. The aliens have been watching us for months, and they think they understand human capabilities. They've calculated that we pose minimal threat based on our public technology levels. They have no idea what we're really capable of. Jake activated the base's main communication system, linking all 3 hidden facilities. This is Constructor. Morrison to all teams. Operation First Contact is now active. We have 72 hours to prepare for the most important mission in human history. Over the next 3 days, Jake's teams worked around the clock to prepare for the assault on the alien enforcement ship. The stealth reconnaissance vessel was equipped with boarding pods that could penetrate the alien ship's hull. The defensive platform was moved into position to provide support. Most importantly, Jake and his enhanced team members practiced using the captured alien technology they had recovered from various probe crashes. On the morning of the 3rd day, as the consortium enforcement ship entered Earth orbit, Jake Morrison sat in the pilot seat of the stealth vessel, surrounded by 20 of his best people. Each person was equipped with weapons and tools that wouldn't exist in normal human technology for centuries. Remember, Jake told his team over their communication link, we're not trying to destroy their ship or kill their crew. We want to capture them intact and demonstrate that humanity is more advanced than they believed. This isn't just a military operation. It's a diplomatic statement. The stealth ship moved silently toward the massive alien vessel. Jake could feel Prometheus Dawn's presence in his mind, providing tactical information and guidance. The temporal echoes were showing him multiple possible outcomes, most of them successful if his team executed the plan correctly. Jake, Rachel's voice came through the communication system from the main base. I'm detecting multiple transmissions from the enforcement ship to the galaxy at large. They're broadcasting their demands to Earth and telling the galactic community that containment protocols will begin in 6 hours if humanity doesn't surrender. Then we better make sure those protocols never start, Jake replied. All teams, prepare for boarding action. It's time to introduce ourselves to our galactic neighbors. The capture of the consortium enforcement ship had been a complete success. Jake's team had boarded the massive vessel through multiple hull breaches, using their advanced technology to overwhelm the alien crew without casualties. The aliens had surrendered quickly once they realized their weapons were ineffective against human shield technology, and their computers were being hacked by Jake's enhanced abilities. But the victory had come with a terrible cost. The galactic response was immediate and overwhelming. Jake stood in the captured ship's command center, watching the displays that showed space around Earth. What he saw made his heart sink. The galaxy had not been impressed by humanity's show of strength. Instead, they had been terrified. How many ships? Jake asked Rachel, who was analyzing the sensor data. Over 3,000, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Representatives from 47 different species. This isn't an enforcement fleet anymore, Jake. This is an extermination armada. Through his connection with Prometheus Dawn, Jake could access the communications between the alien fleets. The message was clear and unanimous. Humanity had proven itself to be exactly the threat the galaxy had feared. A primitive species that had somehow acquired advanced technology and used it aggressively. The debate was no longer about containment. It was about complete elimination. "Commander Vex 9 wants to speak with you again," Carlos said, pointing to the detention area where they were holding the captured alien crew. Jake nodded and walked to the secure section of the ship. Commander Vex 9 was the ranking officer of the consortium vessel, a being that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a crystal formation. Despite its alien appearance, Jake had found Vex 9 to be intelligent and reasonable during their previous conversations. "Constructor Morrison," Vex 9 said in its melodic voice, "I have been monitoring the fleet communications. You have doomed your species." "Maybe," Jake admitted. "But we weren't going to survive your original plan either. The containment protocols would have preserved most of your population. Now the galaxy has voted for complete sterilization. Your world will be reduced to molten rock, and every human in the galaxy will be hunted down and eliminated." Jake sat down across from the alien. "Commander, why are they so afraid of us?" Vex 9's crystalline body flickered with colors that Jake had learned indicated complex emotions. "Because in all our recorded history, no species has ever developed as rapidly as yours. Most civilizations take tens of thousands of years to progress. From primitive tool use to spaceflight, humans accomplished it in a few thousand years. Then, in just the past century, you have made technological leaps that should have taken millennia. So, we're fast learners. That makes us dangerous? Constructor Morrison, do you understand what your species represents to the galaxy? You are a civilization that can adapt any technology, solve any problem, and overcome any obstacle in impossibly short time frames. Left unchecked, humans could dominate the entire galaxy within a few centuries." Jake felt a chill as he realized the truth. They're not trying to conquer us. They're trying to prevent us from conquering them. Exactly. And now that you have demonstrated the ability to capture our most advanced warship with apparent ease, every species in the galaxy believes the threat must be eliminated immediately. Jake stood up and began pacing. Through his connection to Prometheus Dawn, he could feel the ship's concern. They had perhaps 18 hours before the extermination fleet would be in position to begin their attack. Even with all the advanced technology they had built, Jake's resistance network couldn't possibly fight 3,000 alien warships. "There is one option," Prometheus Dawn said in Jake's mind, "but it will require the ultimate sacrifice." Jake walked back to the command center, where his core team was trying to find solutions that didn't exist. Rachel was running calculations on defensive scenarios. Carlos was checking the status of their hidden bases. Everyone looked desperate. "I need to tell you all something," Jake said, getting their attention. "Prometheus Dawn has been hiding the full capabilities of the 7th ship, the Temporal Laboratory." "What kind of capabilities?" Rachel asked. Jake accessed the ship's files and projected them onto the main display. What appeared was a complex diagram showing multiple Earth timelines branching from a single point. "The laboratory can split our timeline into multiple parallel realities. Instead of one Earth facing extinction, we could create 7 different Earths, each developing independently. The alien fleet would only be able to destroy one timeline, while the others would survive and grow." Carlos stared at the display. That's actually possible?" "According to the ship's records, yes. But the process requires enormous amounts of energy and a conscious guide to direct the split. Someone would have to interface directly with the temporal core and remain connected throughout the entire process." "What happens to whoever does that?" Rachel asked, though Jake could tell she already suspected the answer. "Their consciousness becomes distributed across all the timelines. They become part of the temporal framework itself, unable to exist in any single reality. The room fell silent. Jake was describing the total destruction of his individual existence in order to save humanity across multiple realities. There has to be another way, Carlos said. We could try to negotiate or build more defenses, or... Carlos, Jake interrupted gently. Look at the tactical display. We have 18 hours before 3,000 alien warships reduce Earth to ash. There is no other way. Jake turned to address his entire team. I'm not ordering anyone to support this plan, but I need you to understand what's at stake. In some of the timelines we create, humanity might become a peaceful member of the galactic community. In others, we might become the dominant species. In at least one timeline, we might